Good morning, everyone. A little rusty today. It's been a little while since I've done one of these. Still waiting for some people to join us. Let's see what I got to do to share this. Uh, share screen. Share screen too. You seeing the? You seeing the cyber? All right, good. I don't have a good preview system in this Zoom thing. I really don't. Okay. Welcome. And today we're going to be talking about, of course, cybersecurity, my favorite topic. And this presentation is based on an article I wrote that was in the Buffalo newspaper, Buffalo Business First. It was called "In Cybersecurity, the Best Defense is a Good Offense." So we decided to make that the topic for today. And we're going to have another seminar next week. Next month, and I think that one's going to be on Shield Act. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's just start. And you have questions, you can ask them as you go along. For some of you that are new that don't know anything about me, I've been in the IT industry over 35 years. I've got all kinds of certifications. I constantly try to keep learning new stuff. Now my focus has been security over the past few years. But in IT, I've been exposed to everything, all kinds of systems, and large and small, and been helping small businesses and medium-sized businesses for a long time. So anything I can help you with, shoot me an email, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. Today we're going to talk about offense versus defense, and then I'm going to give you 7 key security steps that you could be doing, and then just a brief touch on New York Shield Act, which I don't want people to forget about because we're all under it. It's already in effect, and we have to think about it. And then we'll do some Q&A. The first thing is, what do I mean by offense versus defense? I bet you all of you have antivirus on your PC. I bet you all use a password to get into your computer or your email. Those are defensive things. You're trying to prevent, and you're trying to get an antivirus to find the virus on your machine, but at that point it's already on your machine. Going offensively is what we're going to focus on. Offensive means bringing the fight to them. I guess it goes back to old ancient discussion of war and how to fight wars, and the term goes back a long time to the best defense is a strong offense. So instead of your attacker waiting for your attackers to come to you, you bring the fight to them. So that's what we're going to be talking about, is why you want to go on the offense versus being defensive, and you think about what you currently do right now. Most security things, people put a firewall in, that's defensive. They put in a uh, password on their computer. They uh, try to put antivirus, and maybe even you got anti-malware, or maybe you got Malwarebytes or Spybot or one of those that have been around, um, to search your computer and look for those kinds of things. So that's all defense. Um, and there's probably a lot of other things you can think of in terms of what defensive being defensive is. So now we're going to think about what we can do to be offensive, and not offensive in a bad way. That's funny. Don't want to offend anyone. Um, so what you're going to do for offensive, one of my first suggestion is the human factor. Is you got to teach your employees. You've got to do training. Training is going on the offensive. Getting your people trained to spot spam. Uh, Basically, the human factor is the weakest link. So what we want to do is talk about training. Uh, Many of you may know, because we've done some seminars on it before, but Know Before is our preferred platform for training and security awareness. What does it do? It allows us to do phishing, where we are trying to trick your employees into clicking on emails that they shouldn't, and we kind of study people's behavior and see what things they're more susceptible to. Uh, there's all kinds of tricks they use, tricking you in terms of public, uh, like news events, um, current events, things of that sort, what's happening in news, uh, getting you to click on a survey, um, all those kinds of things. Knowing that you're looking at ads for a certain type of product, using your AdSense, Google AdSense, and knowing that you're searching on cars, so it sends you something related to that. So kind of being a little bit insidious in terms of trying to see who's going to click on things and who's what we call fish prone, someone who's really susceptible or gullible. And different people that work for you will be gullible and will believe an email that says it's from their boss, even though their boss is sitting across the hall from them or whatever. Instead of asking them, they'll assume that they need to do what the email says without confirming, even though it sounds kind of out of the ordinary. Why am I wiring 50 grand to this business? It's not something we normally do. So the human factor, the weakest link, the way you go offensive on this is you offensively go out and you do training. You don't wait until someone's had a problem to train them. Train them now. So you train your users by putting them through some video computer-based training, showing them how to spot fake URLs, and how to spot phishing attempts and things of that sort, and teach them those things. And then monitor it. So it's an ongoing program. So that is probably, I think, the most important one of the steps that you need to do is the human factor. The next one is continuous backup. On October 10th I think it was October 10th of this year, just 4 days ago, a very, very large law firm that has 16 offices, 900 attorneys, I don't know how many support personnel, based in Chicago, was ransomware, was attacked. And all of their systems were encrypted. They are still not recovered, and they are dealing with the fact that the people that ransomwared them haven't even asked for demands yet. They haven't even been told what the ransom is going to be or how to get the keys back. So they literally are scrambling and figuring out what to do to recover. This was their mail system, and some other key systems. So their phones are working, but they have no email flow. They have no access to their applications and their data. And they literally, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar law firm that has been brought to its knees. And you would think with the amount of money they spend on technology, they would have really thought about how to recover in this kind of situation. The reality is the only recovery to ransomware and being encrypted by criminals is having a good backup. And backups are no longer last night's backup. That's not good enough. When you have continuous email flowing through your business, when you have continuous transactions occurring in your business, you need to have a backup that is continuous. And so now you need to be making sure you're backing up your email. Are you backing up your Office 365 and Google? Microsoft doesn't back it up for you. Google doesn't back it up for you. You need to pay for services to have your systems backed up. Your servers, your workstations. Now we have everyone working from home, your laptops at home. How are you backing them up? So recovery becomes a different story and backup becomes a different story. You got to start thinking in terms of proactively, continuously backing up your environment and not this once a day. Having your backup from last night is just not good enough in today's instantaneous world of email and uh, texting and chatting. KPMG, I think it was pretty sure it was KPMG, one of the largest CPA firms in the world, had lost all their chat history because of an administrative mistake. And guess what that uncovered when they lost all the history for 100,000 employees? They found out they had no backup of their Office 365 teams. So all the chatting and all the teams, they never set up backup for it. So if you're using Teams, are you backing it up? Do you have important information in Teams? Are you using Teams files? Those are all things that need to be considered. So what are you doing to offensively go out and make sure you're proactively backing up everything all the time? People have really gotten lazy here. And as soon as you're ransomware, if you don't have a way to recover by using a backup tool to get you fully recovered, I don't even think you're going to be able to pay the ransom. They're literally trying to put some laws in the book, and the FBI is saying no. Paying a ransom would be considered funding terrorism, and so they're talking about actually making it illegal to even pay the ransom. Their thought is, you might say, why would the government do that? Their thought is maybe they'll stop doing it if they know they're not going to get paid by ransom. Well, there are still people who will do it, but quite frankly, how could you get your hands on a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin? I'll tell you one thing: it won't be easy to get that kind of Bitcoin. By the way, Bitcoin is climbing again, and I'm sure these people have investments in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's up to $11,500 a Bitcoin. So try getting, Bitcoin you need to pay for the ransom. You're really that's not the disaster recovery plan you want to have. You don't want to think owning Bitcoin is the way you're going to get back to your operations. So you got to really think about your backup. We try to have these conversations with customers. Most of our clients are doing part of this, not all of this. When we try to talk about it, they say, well, it's an extra expense we don't want to have. Well, you got to start thinking about is the expense you don't want to have, or is it the email you don't want to have? Because you're going to have to pick one. And you're going to have to decide whether or not your Office 365 is going to get backed up or not, because you are using a cloud service, you're using Google, you're using Microsoft, and I'm telling you right now, they are not backing up your email. If you get cryptoed, your email gets compromised in the cloud, you're going to have a serious problem. Go hunting. Here's another offensive technique: is you actually search your network and monitor your network for unusual activity. It's looking for Trojans, looking for worms, looking for mining software, looking for all kinds of things, not just malware, but even more sophisticated, where you're getting programs that haven't been altered, and you're looking for a behavior like, why is a computer in shipping trying to access the accounting system? That kind of thing. You want to look at more of an AI approach. And we found a package that we include with all our customers now. Our clients did not have to sign up for this. We automatically deployed this to everyone's computer that's under our managed support, and we added the Huntress security platform. Uh, that's in addition to what we do with antivirus. It's in addition to what we do with a lot of things, but we added Huntress to just be searching for crypto mining software that won't even show up in your ad remove programs and won't show up as a virus, but meanwhile it's stealing your resources on your machine and slowing it down because it's trying to do crypto mining and helping these thieves mine Bitcoin. There's other things. There's spam bots using your machine as a platform to launch attacks at other people. We had a client that one of their PCs got compromised, and it was busy trying to. It was a part of um, an attack, coordinated attack on some DoD targets. So the client didn't even know that one of their machines in their office had malware on it that was actually trying to attack DoD. Well, the good news, the monitoring software found it and was able to eradicate it. So we like to go hunting now, and we actually add Huntress to all our systems. So it's another one to really consider. Is it's kind of this new artificial intelligence network-based monitoring. It's not looking for virus definitions. It's really more sophisticated than that. Dark web and darknet monitoring. This has been around, been talked about a lot more. I think probably because of Experian and um, Discover's promoting it, Experience promoting it. You're starting to see Norton 360 on the TV talking about the dark web and the dark net. I wanted to give you, this is a great graphic that I found that talks about what we see. We normally are working above the waterline. We see the iceberg, but all the dangerous stuff, the stuff that sank the Titanic, was under the water level. And so that analogy here is the deep web and the dark web, where all the illegal actions and illegal sales and the trading of identity information, credit information, all that's done in the dark web. It's not really searchable. There are some tools allow you to do that, but this is really direct connections to servers. You've kind of got to, I don't know how many of us know where to go find drugs. I mean, it's, it seems like people that are drug addicts know where to find other drug dealers. Well, if you were trading in illegal arms and trading in identity theft information and black market stuff, you would be going directly to IP addresses on the internet. They're not going to show up in Google. They're not going to show up in Bing and all this kind, or Wikipedia. You're going to find them by going directly to it and knowing the address of the speakeasy, and knowing the password to get in the speakeasy is how you would get into the illegal liquor establishment during Prohibition. Same kind of idea with the dark web, darknet. It's hard for people to grasp it, that there's not really a search for it, but you get given an address, say, hey, go to this address on the internet and then put in this passcode and you can get in. So it's through sharing through criminal activity, this information gets shared and people get and this is how your information gets traded. So what does a dark web monitoring do? The dark web monitoring means you pay for a service that looks for your credentials on the dark web. So when you read an article about a company like the Bella Subs being hacked and credit card information being stolen from DeBellas, if your information is being monitored and that information that gets stolen from DeBellas end up on the dark net, you can get an alert saying, hey, we found your information, and it gives you the ideas, okay, now I should update and change my password, or I need to be vigilant in checking my credit and watching those things. So the alerting idea doesn't stop it from happening, but it's proactively alerting you to the timing. So for instance, you have an account with LinkedIn. and you use LinkedIn all the time. Well, say your credentials are found on LinkedIn, you're going to be told that and say, hey, we found these credentials on LinkedIn. And you can look at the date that they found them and say, well, I haven't changed my password since then. So maybe I need to change it now. Uh, so when you hear about a Facebook hack, or you hear about LinkedIn, or you hear about Uber, or you hear about all these different places that have been hacked, if you have a monitoring service and your credentials are part of that hack, you'll be alerted, and then you know to change that password. That's going to bring up another one of our proactive things we're going to do, and that is getting involved in doing a better job with our passwords. But that's the dark web and dark net. If you're not familiar with it, that's great. But what you do want to do is have someone monitoring it for you and alerting you, just like, I mean, really, there's a lot of different ways of doing this. The credit companies are getting into it. There's a lot of different services to do this. Banks are getting into it because they're really trying to make you aware that your information has been stolen. The other next thing that you should think about adding is the Security Operations Center. This was kind of always reserved for big companies. You talk about Network Operations Center. What's a Security Operations Center? It's very similar. You know, you can, if you visualize the room with all the big monitors on there, like a war room, and they show the network, and they kind of have things color coded between red and green, and they show the traffic going back and forth. Well, that's kind of what a Security Operations Center does, but not really. What we're doing here is this a SOC, or a Security Operations Center, that you're paying for today is actually getting fed your system logs. So we're sending your log information from your firewall. We're sending information from your servers. All these logs are creating a tremendous amount of activity all day long. All your activity on the internet, every time someone goes in and out of the system, logs in and out of your server, every time someone goes to a different website, every time someone has a different session, all that activity is being put into these logs that actually overwrite. They keep rewriting. I think typical log can hold about 6 hours worth of data, and then it's gone. Well, what a Security Operations Center does is it scrubs it actively. So those logs get analyzed and sent to security operation, and it looks for patterns, it looks for aberrations, it looks for things that shouldn't be happening, and then it alerts a security analyst. That security analyst can then determine, is it a false positive, or is this really a positive bad thing that's happening, and we need to alert the company. So what a Security Operations Center is like your ADT alarm monitoring. ADT doesn't know that someone broke into your house until the alarm system triggers it and sends them alert. Well, that's what's happening here. The Security Operations Center is monitoring your firewall. Your firewall's recording this activity. It's telling you that, hey, someone's knocking on the door, but no one's watching the system log. No one's watching the attempts on your server. So now you've got an operations center that's seeing those alarms, just like ADT would for your home. They're seeing the alarms, they're checking them, and then they're alerting you. ADT calls the police, or sends fire, or sends ambulance, but Security Operations Center is going to contact your IT department and say, hey, someone just tried to get into XYZ computer, and I got an alert about that. That's what a Security Operations Center does. The good news is, where this used to be only reserved for very high-end governments, or large companies, governments, people that could really afford a SOC, SOCs have turned into a service like everything else has turned into a service. So now you can buy it for your small business. You're paying a much smaller amount, but they're doing it for hundreds of companies like they're doing it for you. So if you think of ADT monitoring 10 million homes, think about a Security Operation Center that might be monitoring 100,000 computers and 100,000 firewalls or servers, things of that sort. So Security Operations Center is the next thing you want to do. And we use Vigilant as our Security Operations Center. And it really becomes vital. And the reason is you're not up 24/7. You can't be reading the system logs. The old days, you used to peruse the log in the morning. You'd review the log from the previous night. You just can't do that. There's just too much activity now. So now the logs are almost becoming useless. So what I'm telling people is that, hey, you have this firewall. This firewall's doing all this work, but and collecting all this data, and it's blocking what it can block, but you might have some rules in there that are wrong. It might might have some permissions that are correct. Well, you want the log to be read by someone who can analyze and say, hey, this really shouldn't be happening. So firewalls is a really big thing that the reality is no one's paying attention to them. They may even be updating them, and they may be configuring some things in the firewall to alert them, but no one's looking for the patterns. And security operations centers, again, are trying to use some artificial intelligence monitoring software tools, and then the human factor of having an analyst to look at it. One other thing that's really important, Verizon, who does a breach analysis report every year, does a state of the security of the tech world, puts out a pretty comprehensive report that's free. You can download it from Verizon, and they have done study every year. They do a study, and they show that the length of time between a breach and discovery has been months. With the advent of a SOC and a security operations center, that's time being shortened. So what's happening is people don't even know they've been hacked. Someone's been in their system, in their network. They've been in there for months and months before it's even triggered, and they know about it. By adding a SOC, by you adding a SOC to your environment, it doesn't matter how large your business is, by adding this service to your business, it is a separate service, you will know within 10 minutes that someone's gotten into your network and that shouldn't be. So now you can really lock yourself down, do defensive things, block them if they're trying to get into your system, and it won't go on unnoticed for months upon months like it has. I mean, Uber was what, 2 years they get back to us and tell us that, we found we got compromised 2 years ago, and we didn't realize that we've been vulnerable all this time. Those kinds of things stop because with a security operations center, you're monitoring all these things continuously. Security assessments. Why are security assessments so important? Why is this a proactive or a offensive technique? It's because you're looking for threats. You're actually going out and trying to find your weaknesses. You're kind of you're checking your defensives. You're checking your locks on your windows and your doors. You're checking the lighting around your building. You're doing those kinds of things, but you're doing it in a technology way. So the same kind of things you might do in a physical, like a guard might do, in terms of visually checking and looking for things, monitoring cameras and checking door locks. We always see it in the movies. A security guard walks down the hall and jiggles the lock, and it's locked, and meanwhile the criminal's in the room, that kind of thing. So a security assessment is our way to come in, and this can't be just a one and done. So it's our way to come in and look at what is happening in your environment. What are possible risks? Wow, your server is in an unlocked room. Anyone can have access to it. That's not good. You've probably seen some movies where they plug things into the network, distract the security, plug something in the network so they can get into the network. Well, that's really doable. I mean, if you got into a building and were able to plug in an access point into their network, you'd be on their network and they wouldn't know about it. So if you're not assessing and looking for these threats and assessing your network and searching for access points that shouldn't be there or devices that shouldn't be there, you're not really finding your vulnerabilities and addressing those threats and protecting those assets if you're not doing an assessment. And this needs to be continuous. The rule with a lot of the new compliance regulations is a minimum of annual. We get an annual physical. We're assessing our health every year. Why wouldn't you get an annual security assessment for your business. So these are not something that are automatic. What do I mean by that? I have people always tell me, well, I have an IT guy and he does that. I have a managed service provider. They're doing my security for me. No, your assessments need to be done. You want someone checking up on everybody. So uh, I want to check up on my guys. I want to do an assessment on our network and make sure that we're doing our job. We want to assess. You need to go out and make sure you're doing those assessments, getting a second opinion, having someone check it, and it's not to shoot the messenger, and it's not to lambaste your IT person that may not be having everything covered. The idea is to find out what is weak, what isn't being done, and add more and more layers of security. So you got to keep reassessing. Um, Another way to think about this is practice. I mean, you practice to get better at something. You've got to do assessments to get better at it. They talk about doing tabletop exercises. They talk about having round tables and talk about what are threats, what are things could happen to us, where are vulnerabilities. And I better be really clear here. I'm not just talking computers. What about your phones? What about disruption to your building, your business, your electrical, any of your services for your business? What would stop your business from being a business? What could interrupt your business? COVID. That's a new one. Pandemic. Um, think about the people that are dealing with COVID, but have fires or hurricanes or tornadoes that are bearing down on them or destroying their business or affecting their business or flooding their business. There's so many other things that when you're doing a security and you're doing a risk assessment, you actually, for my training, what I went through is you look at everything. You're talking about, you're not just talking tech, you're talking physical, you're talking about all the external factors. And pandemic is now a new one that people forgot about. What is another recent one? Active shooter scenarios. People are doing active shooter tabletop exercises. What we do in this case, schools have to prepare for these things. What if a disgruntled employee or ex-employee comes in with a gun? These become risk assessments, and they're broader than just IT security assessments. So think about that for your business, and I really would recommend you. Uh, you can't solve all the problems, but you can't solve what you don't identify. So trying to identify the vulnerabilities and the threats is really important. Password manager. Passwords are still the #1 defense. And how do you go on the offensive with a password manager? By adding a password manager, the way you're going offensively is you're no longer settling for using the same password on multiple sites. You're no longer just doing a simple increment of 2019 to 2020 to 2021 at the end of your password because the year changed, and say, oh, I change my password every year. Great. Well, guess what? If I see that pattern in the dark web that you have the year at the end of your password, well, I guess if that doesn't work, let me try the next year. Let me try the previous year. All of a sudden, you've showed me a weakness in your password creation that I can exploit. So using a password manager and having something generate a passphrase, password that is complicated, and that is random, becomes a really great offensive tactic. The other thing is the password manager can tell you, well, you haven't changed your password in a while at this site. You should update it. It hasn't been changed for a while. The password manager we use actually is part of the dark web monitoring, and it comes back and says, hey, I see that you haven't changed your your LinkedIn password for 6 months. Well, there is a known infiltration of LinkedIn 4 months ago. That means your password could be in that pool of ones that got compromised. So it keeps track of how long ago you changed your password, and that tied with your dark web monitoring gives you great insight as, oh, I need to change the password here because that company was compromised. It's not going to stop. But you also have to have different passwords at different sites. And the only way you're going to do that, and you're never going to be able to remember them all, is you got to use a tool. The tool that we love and we use here is LastPass. It is the last password you'll ever need to know. You don't share it with anyone. You make it a passphrase, and then people say, "Well, how is this safer?" Do you know what you're doing is when you create that LastPass, you're doing your own encryption. You're creating a key, a private key to encrypt your information for when you send it back and forth between LastPass. So LastPass doesn't even know your passwords. They're all hashed. They're all encrypted in their system. The two systems are split. The decrypting system and the storage system are completely separate, and it's actually a fantastic technology. But you can store all kinds of secure information. You can encrypt your credit card information. You can encrypt um, policy information for insurance policies, social security numbers, you name it. You can store it and store it safely in LastPass because of the design and the way they've designed it, using the hash key. The only possible way is for someone to get your master password. So that's why, one, you don't share it, and two, why you make it a complex phrase. And they do a really neat thing where they do scoring in the program. It actually tells you your password's weak, your password's strong, your password's very strong, your password's very weak. It tells you and it grades you and gives you an idea of whether your password's good or not. So it has the security challenge piece where it goes through and says and gives you recommendations of where you can make improvements. So here is the list of all the different security measures. So I promised you 7, and we went through 7 of them. You have your awareness training, require it, require the testing. Go to a continuous backup with versioning and using a secured unit. Why do I say secured unit? People have backup systems that aren't any more secure than the primary system. You know, they'll say, I have a backup server. Oh, well, can they encrypt both the primary and the backup? Well, I guess they could. Well, that's no good. You have to have disconnected systems. Your backup has to be inaccessible to the rest of the world. You got to be able to make sure that that backup server backs up a backup unit, and that backup unit isn't accessible. So you have to make sure you use a solution like that. Active network AI scanning, that's my Huntress. That's a program that goes out and proactively looks for things that shouldn't be happening or occurring on your network or on your workstations. It looks for programs that aren't correct, that shouldn't be there. This is not the same as malware. This is programs that potentially are legit, but someone's done something to them. Like maybe they've altered Acrobat, and now there's something in Acrobat that it's trying to do that it shouldn't be doing. They piggyback on other programs. So the other thing is when we talk about artificial intelligence, we're just saying is that behavior doesn't make sense. And it's saying, well, why would your computer be trying to talk to someone's computer next to them? You know, that kind of thing. Like, why are you trying to install this program? It doesn't make sense. So it tries to look at things in a different way. Of course, monitoring breaches in the dark web is a service that you need to turn on. Again, that is actively looking for your information in the dark web. So it may not find anything today, but it may find it tomorrow. So you're constantly looking proactively for that. Firewall, you all have them, but you're not really monitoring them. No one's really paying attention. So you can add the SimSock active 24/7. I wrote 366 because we're in a leap year, just to kind of emphasize the point that you don't want to miss any day, and you want to be actively monitoring all the traffic in and out of your environment, looking for threat actors, bad behavior, things of that sort that shouldn't be happening. And your firewall will tell you even failed attempts. And that's just as important as knowing think of it this way. If you have a firewall and someone's casing your joint, do you know it? No. If you have a physical building and someone's walking around your perimeter, unless you have cameras monitoring, unless you have a security monitoring, you don't even know your joint's being cased by a criminal trying to find a weakness to get in. So you have this firewall. Do you know someone's even trying to get into you? Do you have anyone looking and seeing, are they knocking on the door of your firewall? There's 65,000 doors in your firewall. Those are called ports. And they're trying to find weaknesses in your defenses. So you want to know that someone's trying to do that. And that's what a SIMSOC will do. Don't forget annual pen testing and simulations. This is becoming a requirement. It's becoming a requirement of almost all the compliance regulations. Require a password manager and review the scoring. As an administrator of a password manager, a company can see how your employees are doing. And you can say, hey, Bob, your password shows it weak. Could you please update it and change it? Great, Bob. Now it says it's strong. Good. You picked a harder password. Or, hey, Sue, your password is the same password you've had for 2 years. I think it might be time to change it. And that kind of thing. So having a password manager allows you actually oversight on what your people are doing. So LastPass allows you as an enterprise version to look and see what people are doing with it. And that's why we recommend that. Everything that I just told you, all 7 steps will get you in alignment with the New York Shield Act. That's why I put the New York Shield Act up there. Is if you do the awareness training, if you do the SIMSOC monitoring, you're doing the continuous backup, if you do everything I listed, the password manager, all 7 steps, you do those, you will be New York State Shield Act compliant, except for one piece. You have to add the WISP. What is a WISP? That's your written information security plan. You have to have a written document with your policies, your acceptable use policies, password policies, your protection policies, everything we just talked about. You need to have it in a written form, and you want a WISP. We are partnering with a law firm, MCCM and McConnellville. They're going to be helping you write and develop a WISP because it really is more of a legal document. Why do I say it's a legal document? Because your insurance company is going to pull it out. The lawsuits are going to pull it out. If you have a breach and you're being held liable for that breach, they're going to want to know, well, what was your WISP and what did you do to protect your client's information, your customer's information? That's what New York Shield's all about, is protecting New York State's private personal information of your PII, your private information of your customers and your employees. Some people say, well, I don't have customers. You got employees, you got to protect their information. You have their social security numbers, you've got their birth dates, you've got their address information, email information. All that is PII. You put that together, you got identity theft. So a WISP is a written document that you will need to show your insurance company that you are compliant to Shield Act. This is the document, this is the roadmap and the policy map that you need to have. It is a document that gets reviewed every year. So if your business expands, changes, morphs, you add new services, you might alter your WISP. It's the only piece I don't do because it's more of a legal document. And that's why we've partnered with a law firm to help you with that. So you can reach back out to me and I'll be happy to get you in contact with the law firm that we decide to use for that. Now, let's get into questions and answers. Let's talk about anything you might have. Let me see if I've got any Q&A started. I don't see any questions right now. But if you have any, throw them out there. You can do them right into the Zoom Q&A session. You can also put it in the chat window if you like. I can see if there's anything there. I'm not seeing any. The other thing is that article I mentioned, this whole presentation was kind of based on the article I did for the Buffalo Business First newspaper. Be happy to send you the article. It's kind of a nice refresher of everything I just said. So if you'd like to get a copy of the article, we can send you the link to it, and you can download it. Download the article from Buffalo Business First, and happy to answer any questions you have after reading the article. If you'd like a copy of my slides, be happy to include that as well. So here's my contact information. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can email me um, and send me any requests you have if you're looking for um, uh, any specific questions to your situation. Email me if you have any, if you want a copy of the presentation or the article, just email us and we'll be happy to get that. If there are no questions at this time, I don't see anything in the window. Hopefully I'm not missing anything. Uh, have a great rest of your day and a great week, and stay safe out there. Thank you.